thanks to my child and youth care students who I ran a lot of trainings for, I have a whole jar of cuts of questions people have left me. So I'm going to pull out one of these and answer them for you today. I don't know what I'm getting. I feel like it's a lucky draw. All right, we have this one. And it says, how should you handle a suicidal friend who always makes jokes about ending their lives, and I can't tell if they're actually going to do it? Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, that's not all that uncommon for people to make those jokes. We tend to call it sort of a dark humor, and sometimes it is a way to cope for some people. But for those of us who are concerned, I think it's good reason to be concerned, because sometimes this is a way that a person who may be thinking about suicide has been trying to reach out for help. It's really hard to put something like suicide on the table for people who may be thinking about it due to its stigma nature, the nature of it being stigmatized, and often there's a lot of shame connected to it. And so making a joke about it can sometimes be a way to test the waters, see if anybody actually picks up on it. Is anybody going to ask about it? And this can be the closest that someone may feel that they can bring it up and talk about it. So the best thing to do in these situations, and of course take everything I say with a pinch of salt, because human beings are such complex creatures. What I say might work, might not work for your friend, right? Or your loved one. So take it with a pinch of salt. However, I would encourage you to say something along the lines of, that's a pretty big statement to make, even if you're joking about it. I just want you to know I'm okay to talk about those things if it ever is serious and it is something you want to talk about. There's a lot of fear about saying something like that. So I want to address the fear too, because that fear can often be a barrier to helping somebody with suicide. The fear is I don't want to say the word suicide because it's just too dramatic, too big, too out there. But if a person's talking about killing themselves, they're already talking about suicide. You're just helping to label what it is they're talking about. And the research behind labels is it can often alleviate some of the stress people carry that might have to do with those labels. So if you feel the courage, I would encourage you to actually push back a little bit and say, hey, I'm not going to let that joke slip by. What do you mean by that? Tell me more about that when you say that, because you say it quite a bit. I want to know more behind what's going on there. And they may say, it's just, oh my goodness, you're so dramatic, I'm just talking. But even if they push you off and you feel like, okay, yeah, they're just talking, you've planted a seed, right? Because this person, even if in that moment they weren't actually serious, you've now planted a seed that tells them, hey, if you ever got to that point, I am somebody that's grounded enough about this topic and I'm not afraid to talk about it. So regardless of the outcome of that situation, you've planted a seed, and that seed may eventually prove to be worth it. You may find that you're kind of hesitant and you're thinking, well, I'll just read their vibe, see what kind of mood they're in, what context it's said in. And that's okay sometimes. That said, if they're talking about it, the only way to really clearly know what they mean by it is to straight up ask them, right? And sometimes that's a big hurdle for a lot of people, to just straight up ask them. I'll give you a tip though. One of the things that really helped me, because I remember being in a position where I knew nothing about suicide intervention, and I was telling myself, well, there must be another way. This seems so dramatic to talk about it like that, and I don't know how comfortable I feel. And what helped me get past it was realizing that my discomfort was about me, about my needs, about my desire to be comfortable, right? And if I really truly want to help somebody, I actually need to allow myself to be uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, if I'm there and I want to help somebody, I need to find peace with being uncomfortable, because their need, and it's their need that matters at this point, if you want to be an effective helper, is for me to be straight up with them and to have the direct conversation. Because if we beat around the bush and if we're not being straight about what we're asking, we're telling the person, in essence, I'm uncomfortable with this topic, right? And they're throwing out this joke of like, I could just kill myself. And seeing how people respond is checking what is the comfort level of this person if I throw this out there. Are they going to let that sit? Will they pick at it a little bit? Are they going to check in with me, right? And of course, everybody's situation could be different. Again, it could just be their way of talking and joking around. But it's something you do want to check in about and be straight about. Because again, suicide is not, a small issue. It's a life and death issue, literally. So don't miss the chance to ask.